When you were a kid, you probably wished that you could zip around the world with a magical flying vehicle from one of your favorite movies or books. Everyone knows about witch brooms, Aladdin's magic carpet, and Santa's sleigh, but it turns out that throughout the course of human history, people have been dreaming of all sorts of magical vehicles that can take them to far-off places. Some of them, well, they're seriously out of this world. Number 10. Thor's Goat Chariot. Today when people think of the Norse thunder god Thor, they think of the Marvel character with a hammer who can defeat just about anyone, well, except Thanos. In the original mythology, Thor had his own magical vehicle too. It was a chariot, and it was pulled by goats. That's right, two garbage-munching goats named Toothgrinder and Gaptoothed. The idea was that since goats can climb up mountains, these magical goats could carry Thor to any height. The chariot was thought to be made of wood and wicker, and the wheels were made of iron. The goats, they were held by silver chains. One of the other perks of these goats was that they could regenerate at Thor's will. In one story, Thor meets a starving family and he slaughters Toothgrinder and Gaptoothed without hesitation to feed the humans some goat stew. Afterwards, he takes their skin and bones and uses his magic hammer to bring them back to life. Number 9. A witch's broomstick. Witch brooms are usually an old-fashioned form of something called a besom, which was made from small thin twigs tied to a stick. In Wicca, they used a besom to clean away any dust or herbs before they did rituals. This is partly why broomsticks have become associated with witches, but the full story isn't something you would want to tell children before they went trick-or-treating. Historians believe that the broom and flying could be related to a psychedelic drug called scopolamine. They believe that this helped aid the witches in astral projection, or their soul leaving their body. In order for their bodies to hallucinate using this ointment, it would have had to enter the body through the skin. This only works in areas of the body where there are sweat glands with a mucous membrane, which only works in your armpits or, well, your nether regions. The knowledge of witches using brooms to fly must have been taken literally at some point, and it morphed into the image of a witch holding a broomstick between her legs, the one we know today. This idea has become so ingrained in society that in early America, people took precautions to prevent witches from flying their brooms into their homes. In Vermont, witch windows were installed in nearly every house because people believed that the window would be so small that a witch's broom couldn't possibly fit through. Number 8. The Flying Canoe. In the 1600s, entrepreneurial French fur traders would hunt in Canada and bring their wares back to Europe. They were known as coureurs de bois, and they were admired for being a mix of rugged mountain men with business savvy. Many of these traders would exchange stories with natives from the First Nation tribes. One of their legends was about a magical flying canoe. In the 1800s, a writer blended the First Nation and French-Canadian legends together to write Le Chasse Galerie, or The Bewitched Canoe. There are several different versions of the story. In one, a nobleman named Gallery was rich from selling furs, and he was so busy working and hunting that he never went to church on Sunday. He was cursed to fly in a ghost canoe in the night sky, chased by ghosts of horses and wolves. Another version of the story involves a group of fur trappers who were partying on New Year's Eve. They all talk about how much they miss their wives and girlfriends and were wishing that they could spend the holiday with them just for one night. The only problem is that their homes are 300 miles away. They decide to make a deal with the devil so that their canoe can fly. This would mean they get to see their lovers and return back home before the next morning. While this may not be a popular fairy tale today, there is still a flying canoe festival in Edmonton, Alberta every year. People wear canoe costumes and they party under bright lights with food and drinks. There was even a movie made in 2016 based on the legend. Number 7. Baba Yaga's Flying Mortar and Pestle. Baba Yaga is a well-known character from a Slavic fairy tale, although you probably know the name from John Wick. The name literally translates to grandmother or elderly woman. She is a witch that lives in a house supported by giant chicken legs. The mortar and pestle that Baba Yaga uses for her herbs and potions grows to be big enough where she can fit inside of it like one of the teacups in Disneyland, and then she can fly away. She uses a broom like a paddle in a boat, sweeping the air to erase any trace that she was ever there. In most stories about Baba Yaga, she eats chicken who have wandered off alone in the woods. In some stories, adults will go to her for help. But of course, her magic, it comes with a price. Every time she helps another person, she gets an entire year older. So she mostly just tries to trick people into doing things for her in exchange for her magic and then attempts to eat them. Number 6. Freya's Cat Chariot. Freya was a goddess of beauty, love, and fertility in Norse mythology. She was remembered for being one of the most beautiful women in existence. At the same time, she was also remembered as a goddess of war because she was the leader of the fierce female warriors called the Valkyries. Whenever a human would die, Freya and the god Odin would divide the souls among themselves. Some would go to Valhalla, which is where the Vikings typically aspired to go when they died, while others would go to a more peaceful afterlife in Freya's heavenly field called Folkvangr. Just like all of the Norse gods, Freya needed a sweet ride. She got around in a magical chariot that was pulled by a team of cats. While we all know you usually can't get a cat to do anything, these felines were actually very obedient and loyal. Freya loved her cats very much, and since she had so much power over life and death, she gave each of the cats 9 lives. Number 5. The Flying Dutchman. The Flying Dutchman is a maritime legend that originated in the 1700s. According to legends, there was a ship approaching a harbour during a storm. Unfortunately, the storm was so bad that the ship sank even though land was in sight. Every so often, people claimed that they could see the ship that sank. Clearly, the ghost of the ship that sank was haunting their conscience, but the story was spun that these spirits were doomed to sail forever and the captain and crew are never allowed to return back to land. They say that if you spot the Flying Dutchman, it's a sign that you are doomed and that something terrible is about to happen. While this is a supernatural vehicle that you don't exactly want to be on, it is still a legend that has circulated among sailors for hundreds of years, and it has been used in movies and TV shows like Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean and SpongeBob SquarePants. Number 4. The Magic Carpet. Yes, we know that Aladdin's flying carpet is really a rug, but that's beside the point. Flying carpets can be found in several of the stories from the Arabian Tales of 1001 Nights. King Solomon was said to have a magic flying carpet in the 13th century AD. He claimed that the gift came from God himself and that it could carry up to 4,000 men at once. The magic carpet even crossed over into Russian folklore with the story of Ivan Tsarevich, who used his magical flying abilities in combination with his pet wolf and firebird. He uses his powers to rescue a beautiful Tsarina who had been kidnapped, and they eventually got married. When you think about it, the story of Ivan Tsarevich sounds a lot like the story of Aladdin, so it's certainly possible that it served as its inspiration. Number 3. The Flying Throne. For countries that have histories that span across thousands of years, the legends of ancient kings can become exaggerated by epic proportions. Kay Kavas was the Shah of Iran who supposedly ruled for 150 years. He also apparently built a flying throne that was carried by a team of trained eagles. He was planning to have the birds carry him all the way to China. He made it all the way to China, but by the time he got there, the eagles were completely exhausted and they dropped him. However, he was rescued and he somehow survived the crash. Now, while this story does sound completely ridiculous, it's not actually that far off from the ideas that people tried in ancient times to get themselves to fly. The real myth part of this story, though, is that he actually succeeded. Number 2. Flidais Deer Chariot. In Irish mythology, Flidais is the goddess of fertility and, oddly enough, cattle. We're not really sure why the two should go together, but she was described as having long, beautiful hair and resembled a woodland fairy. She was considered to be the queen of all the gods, but she married a human king named Ahamher. He took on Flidais as his surname, which was a sign that she was the more powerful one in the relationship. It was said that by praying to Flidais, one could protect the cattle from harm. In ancient Ireland, the number of cows a chieftain owned was a sign of his overall status and wealth, so it was very important for people to keep them alive. Even though Flidais was so clearly involved with cows, she was known for being a master of taming all kinds of animals. Her chariot was pulled by a herd of deer. Number 1. Santa's Sleigh. In the original legend about St. Nicholas, he would walk door to door to leave children presents in their shoes. In the Netherlands, he rode a grey horse named Slecht Vier Vandaag to deliver gifts from house to house. The first publication to ever mention Santa's sleigh was in a short story written by an anonymous author in New York City in 1821 called Old Santa Claus with Much Delight. The illustration that accompanied the story showed Santa Claus in a sleigh led by one nameless reindeer. 2 years later, in 1823, the idea of Santa having a sleigh and reindeer was expanded in the poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, which is now popularly known as The Night Before Christmas. Since then, movie and television writers have gotten creative with Santa's sleigh, including giving the sleigh hyperdrive and indeed a fully functional GPS system. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below and don't forget to subscribe. Brand new videos just like this every day of the week. And if you're looking for something else to watch right now, I'm linking on the screen now another TopTenz video and also a video from my other channel, Today I Found Out. Click on that, check it out if you want to, and subscribe to that channel if you want to, and this channel if you want to, all of that good stuff. And as always, I'll see you next time.